Hi guys, and welcome to another tutorial in Explain Mobile. Um, Today I'm in a very interesting location. I am in Seattle, and currently I'm flying at an altitude of 5,000 feet, and I can see the beautiful ground below. Now today we're going to do a tutorial under instrument flight rules. I'm sure immediately you can tell that we don't have pretty much good visibility, which is only 2.9 nautical miles, and we don't have winds, which is a good thing. So that means we'll be flying under instrument flight rules. Now I am currently at 5,000 feet, as I mentioned, and soon we'll be doing an approach into Bremerton Airport, which is Kilo Papa Whiskey Tango. Sorry, Kilo Papa Whiskey Tango, yes, that's correct. And because we are flying under instrument flight rules, we're simply going to do an instrument landing approach. Currently, I am navigating towards an NDB station, a non-directional beacon, just to say. It's on the heading of about 295 degrees. That's the bearing to that station that I need to follow. And I'm just adjusting my autopilot heading bar to keep it there. And from there, once I reach that destination, I'm going to approach into Bremerton International Airport, as I mentioned earlier. So currently we just have another interesting view from the outside. There we are, we're just passing over a certain lake down there, and we have sparsely populated clouds from this altitude. There isn't really much to see outside. As I mentioned, we're under instrument flight rules, and we will only be able to see about 2.9 nautical miles, and the horizon currently is not actually visible. So that means you have to keep ourselves in the category of instrument flight rules. I hadn't started my clock, but I can just do that right away. I can record my time from now until I land the aircraft, and I like to see my temperature in Celsius. Outside it's only 5 degrees Celsius, and my indicated airspeed is around 190 knots with true airspeed at 130 knots. 324 for ground speed. Now looking at my navigation device, I can see Kilo Papa Whiskey Tango, which is to our left. So that's where we will be landing shortly. Now I need to adjust my compass heading another to about 20 degrees again. There we go. We're getting much closer to that station. So actually I can hear the blip in the cockpit that we're passing over our NDB station, which is a non-directional beacon with the radio frequency 362. So now that we've passed our NDB, I'm going to enter the ILS Approach for Bremerton Airport, runway 20. The frequency, as I mentioned, is 111.10. There we go. And then I'll just activate it. And notice the course deviation indicator is both needles moving. Now I think I did a tutorial on this, but I'll just re-explain it. A course deviation indicator is an instrument that is used to show an aeroplane's relative position with its course. With the course deviation indicator, you normally have one needle that is positioned on a sort of vertical path, as the one below that I just shown. Now that path shows the position of the aircraft from a localizer. It has two ends of the needle pointing at a certain heading on the rose compass. Now in this tutorial, we're not going to be adjusting our heading compass. I'm just going to explain that we have another needle that sort of goes in a horizontal direction. Now that needle shows our glide path. So coupled with the localizer and the glide paths, we're going to have a three-dimensional precision approach, which is an ILS. Now, having put the ILS frequency, I need to arm the autopilot approach mode. So I now have navigation indicated in approach mode, and knowing that my airport is to the right, I'm going to try and turn about 20 degrees so that I'll be quicker at intercepting the localizer. Now the localizer gives us our lateral guidance on our course as we approach into the airport, and as we get closer we will intercept the glide slope, and then the aircraft will be directed down on a three-dimensional precision course with both vertical and lateral guidance. At this moment I just want to adjust the brightness of my instruments so that I can see a bit more. There we go. And consequently I think I just oh, there we go. Yeah, my navigation instruments had gone to such a low brightness I can't see anything. Okay, anyway, back to what we're doing. You can see that on our navigation device it says lock India Papa Whiskey Tango. That means we have entered the frequency for the localizer at India Papa Whiskey Tango, which is Bemerton Airport. And now if you look at our course deviation instrument, we are almost at the same level with the glide slope. So I'm going to start descending. I need to maintain the aircraft below the glide slope. Alright, I'm just going to select vertical speed and we're going to descend. Oops. And then I'm just going to reduce my power as well. Yeah, so I'm either going to stay on the glide slope or below the glide slope till I intercept the localizer. Now during an auto landing sequence, you don't do much with your controls. The autopilot automatically flies us, and you need to be at the correct altitude and correct heading in order to be able to intercept the localizer and the glide slope. Now forgive me, at this moment I'm going to try and increase my rate of descent. I'm going to come to 600 feet per minute. Point is though, I started my approach from a very high altitude. Alright, now if you look at our course deviation indicator, it has the localizer needle all the way far to the right. Now that means that my course is on the right, so I need to track my aircraft in that direction in order to intercept my bearing from the position of the localizer on the ground. Interesting enough, the localizer needle is starting to move, and that means we are now approaching, and sooner or later we're going to intercept it. There we go. And if you look, the aircraft is now banking in the direction. The aircraft is now banking to the left. That's to keep the aircraft on the localizer. Now at this moment the aircraft has intercepted the localizer and we're just slightly below the glide slope. That means we are making a very good progress on approach. The auto landing will continue adjusting the aircraft's position on the localizer, and all I have to do is to monitor that the instruments are giving me the correct the correct reading. That's where the point instrument flight rules comes in. Instrument flight rules, you're basically flying the aeroplane using instruments. Less eyeballs out of the cockpit, more visual on the instrument. Looking right now, we actually coming below 4,000 feet on my altimeter, and that's quite interesting. Also, looking at the navigation display, you can see that the aircraft is pointing towards Kilo Papa Whiskey Tango. Already I'm very close to the clouds, and I can see some interesting view from below down there. Just because we are under instrument flight rules doesn't mean we don't get to see anything. It simply means we have restricted visibility out of the cockpit. Looking far ahead, it's only clouds to see, and I hardly can tell apart the horizon from the sky. Interesting, isn't it? There's a couple of tall buildings down there. Now, quite interesting to look at as well. Now, one thing I need to monitor is my speed. I'm close to 128 knots, which is a bit high, so I need to pull back on my throttle and allow the aircraft to slow down. But as we progress down to lower altitude, where the air is much thicker, there will generally be more aerodynamic drag on this aircraft. So naturally, the speed of the aircraft is going to come down, and by the time I add flaps, I should be coming in close at 60 knots if I have the correct speed adjustment. The cost deviation indicator is actually telling me that the aircraft is on the correct descent path, both with the localizer and the glide slope. So I'm perfectly on my approach course, and right now we are coming down to about 3,800 feet. We've been 7 minutes from the time I started my clock, and temperature is slightly increasing. We are now at 9 degrees Celsius. Our rate of descent is about 600 feet per minute. Now, here's the information that we need to know regarding our destination airport, Bremerton. First thing is, it sits at an elevation of 444 feet, and we are doing an ILS into runway 20, which is which is the only runway available on the airport. There's only one runway available, and we are approaching it from the end where we have runway 20 with an ILS capable approach course with the frequency 111.10 as we entered. There's some high terrain surrounding it on the sides, as you can see. There we go again. The airplane has just adjusted its lateral course. Temperature is up to 10 degrees Celsius, and we're now down to almost 2,000 feet. Now I feel at this moment I'm going to reduce my power slightly, and soon I'm going to take 10 degrees flaps. I'll remove the yokes and put 10 degrees flaps. There we go. And if you notice, the aircraft is ditching down. That's because of the extra lift being generated by flaps. So in order for us to maintain our rate of descent, the aircraft needs to point its nose downwards a bit more. The view of this high terrain is very interesting. They're quite beautiful with a lot of vegetation around. But one thing I might say though, flying an instrument flight rules means that you have to keep your eyes on instruments mostly. But considering that I don't have much aid, considering the kind of environment that I am in, I still have to look around so that I can see the position of high terrain and in order to crash myself into mountains. Secondly, I also need to see the point where I get visual with the runway, and from that moment I'm going to and fly the aircraft manually. Today I believe we're going to have the runway visibility at 12 o'clock position. That means straight ahead. And we're going to be able to see runway 20 as we approach it. My speed is down to 88 knots and I'm descending at 500 feet per minute. I'm just going to increase my power a bit more and add 20 degrees flaps. Final VREF for my final target speed is 20 knots, is 60 knots, I'm sorry. Alright, before landing checklist, we're gonna make sure that flight instruments are correct. We've been checking all that throughout. We have our localizer and glide slope established. We have 111.10 as our frequency for the approach. We don't need a com radio frequency because we don't have a TC. Mixture is full reach. Okay, there we go. Mixture is full reach, and then landing lights must be on. Landing lights are on, and airspeed must be between 65 and 75 with flaps up, and 60 to 70 knots with flaps down. And yeah, we are getting there. We're currently almost at 80 knots, so I'm just going to reduce power slightly. Alright, there we go. That should give us about 70 knots, so coming through there. We're at 76.4 knots, and that's before landing checklist complete. Now transponder is set to altitude and flaps are set, landing lights are on, and everything is pretty much set for a landing. We're coming on to 1,000 feet, and I'm starting to get slight visibility of the runway straight ahead of me. So at this moment might be a suitable idea for me to get rid of the pilot. But let me reduce my power enough to maintain about 60 knots for landing. Alright, let's see our speed coming down. Alright, and at this moment I'm going to dismiss the autopilot. My aircraft. So I'm going to maintain my descent. It looks like I'm getting above the glide slope. I'm going to dish the nose down to maintain the correct path on my approach. Alright. Okay, the approach itself means that I have to transition back to visual flight rules. Once you get visual of the runway to guide you. As I mentioned, the airport is at 400 feet. I'm getting a slight increase in speed, sorry. Let me just reduce my power slightly. Alright, there we go. We'll maintain it there. Alright. Yeah, I was saying, so you have to transition to obviously visual flight rules once you get visual of the airport and the runway, and keep it until the aircraft touches down. Now I think I'm now far below my glide slope, so At this moment, I'm going to concentrate on landing the aircraft. My speed is almost coming to 60 knots, which is good news for me. I'm going to pitch the nose up a bit to allow the speed to drop even more. Yep, the speed is coming all the way to 60 knots. I'm going to try and maintain some level flight until I intercept the glide slope once more and bring the aircraft down. "55 knots is not a bad speed for landing. Stall speed for the Cessna 172 is 44 knots. So I'll still be 10 knots above stall. I'm only 100 feet above the runway because it sits at 444 feet. Touchdown. Engine cut out and maximum braking. Alright, brakes release and taxiing. Gotta find the next taxiway up ahead and we're gonna taxi there. Alright, there we go. Okay, so at this moment I'm just going to turn off my landing lights. Taxi lights can come on. And flaps can go up. Flaps retracted. And yeah, we're going to taxi somewhere around here. I need to give the airplane a little bit of power so that it should be able to taxi. Alright, there we are. Alright, so I'm going to find a suitable location just in front here to secure the aircraft. There we are, taxiing. There's hangars down there somewhere, but I'm not going there. We're going to stop somewhere around here. Okay, so I think at this moment I'm gonna set my parking brake. All right. Just where I wanted to be. All right, let's grab our checklist and see what's the procedure. Okay, after landing, flaps up, we did that. Transponder goes to standby and landing lights are off, we did that. So transponder comes to standby. And flaps are retracted and taxi lights can come off. In fact, nav lights and taxi lights, both of them can come off. And then that's just it. Avionics off, electricals off, throttles to 1000, mixture cut off, ignition off, and masters off. Alright, so there we go. Avionics off. Fuel mixture to the cutoff position. And then beacon can come off as well. Masters can come off. And that can come off, and we switch off the ignition key and we can open the doors. So there you have it, folks. We are in Birmingham International Airport. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.